Today, we have a really juicy topic, unveiling the sacred journey, an intuitive conversation with my dear friend, Priestess Lilly. Explore ancient wisdom and unlock your inner potential. Priestess Lilly is a visionary, priestess, activator, author, medium, and La Dame Blanche, a white lady witch, and a very, very close friend of mine. She helps clients embrace their true selves and begin their journey home. Residing in Picton, New Zealand, Lilly is a trained counsellor, life coach, spellcaster, and channeler of divine frequencies. She shares her story of co-creating a new world while living with her husband, Christian, aka Nugget, and their son, Thomas. Hi, beautiful Priestess Lilly. How are you, my love?
Hello, Suzy. How are you, gorgeous?
Really, really good. I'm so excited for our soulful banter today because you and I know each other really, really well, and we have so much in common. We're so in alignment. So, how fun.
This is going to be magical for your listeners because, I love our energy that when we get on Zoom, how it intertwines and just opens into different portals. So, thank you for having me, Suzy.
You're very, 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 very welcome, my love. So, these juicy podcast questions for you. The first is, can you share your journey to becoming a priestess and spiritual teacher?
My journey has been really different to probably most people's. Probably it really was amplified. I've had my spiritual gift ever since a little girl, and there's been moments where I've dipped in and dipped out, but it's always been a part of me.
Yeah.
My journey really started, my opening when I really truly was cracked. There's been multiple moments, because I believe you don't awaken all at once. We gradually awaken to
It's a progressive journey, isn't it? That
totally.
ever evolving,
Yeah, totally.
Opening. Yeah.
Yeah. And even now, I still think I'm evolving and changing and becoming more embodied in the priestess and the leader that I want to be in the world as a whole. My ripple effect, and when I really started to be truly cracked and started to realize the work, the journey that I wanted to take was during COVID. It was very much during COVID. I was doing readings in the shadows and owned a catering company. And then obviously when New Zealand first went into lockdown, my whole catering company was we did out catering weddings, and all of a sudden that just flatlined and
I do
cardiac
remember
arrest.
that you did that. Yeah,
Yeah.
very well too, I would
Yeah.
imagine.
And I was
Yeah.
really well known for that in my community because we'd won awards for, new emerging business and People's Choice Awards and everything. So all of a sudden, to then have been a flatlined business and going, what am I here to create? And I remember going into my altar space at that time and meditating for that first day of lockdown for like 5 hours and just crying because it was I was so frightened. And I remember sitting there going, how am I to serve? How am I to serve?
Yes.
How am I to
Yeah.
be in the world? And Spirit saying to me, you're going to do readings and that's just start there. And I remember thinking, and there was so much fear around me. And I remember thinking, really? Am I? And that here we are. Here we are.
I love that. I love that was I think you're quite right. It's an ever evolving opening. I love that you use the word almost like cracked open. But yeah, COVID for me was a huge turning point too, because I've always wanted to go online, but never really had the courage to do that. So COVID had some really positive kind of changes for me as well. although at the time it didn't kind of feel that way. It felt quite suffocating, quite frightening. You're quite right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like for me during that time, um, it was me really stepping into a side of myself that had always been there, but I was too scared to share. And so I was too scared to show up in the world as my authentic self. And now I'm just like, well, this is me. This is
Oh my
me. This
goodness.
is where I'm
Now
at.
you're
And
out and proud. You're
yeah,
out of that spiritual closet, my love, aren't you?
yeah, there's no way.
Yeah.
There's no way. I was thinking about it today, going, would I go back there? Absolutely not, because I
Yeah.
see every day, like you, Suzy, the ripple effect that our work um, anchors in the world, and it gives other people permission to show their authentic self and allow their soul to lead.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I just think right now, in a world where we're in so much inner turmoil, and
Yes.
there's so much conflict, and there's just so much negativity, you know, the more we go inward and anchor our own individual light into the world, the more that will have such a ripple effect for those around us. And that is how we're going to implement change. And that's kind of how I see my priestessing in the world. The more I can be authentic in who I am and accept the parts of myself that necessarily I don't like or necessarily I need to deepen into, it gives other people permission, and it gives other people to heal, and it gives other people that space to show up for themselves and their uncomfortableness, but their just amazing juiciness, and just radiate that.
Oh, yeah. I love that osmosis, that domino effect, that butterfly effect of just showing up,
Mm-hmm.
being authentic, having the courage to really just shine and anchor that light into the darkness.
Mm.
And without the bypassing, without any of that,
Yeah.
truly just showing up. I think it's just such an honor to be that leading light. And to me, that really is sacred leadership. You
Mm.
don't even really have to do a lot. You
Mm.
just have to show up in your authentic self and shine your light and create that beautiful ripple effect. I love that you've explained that. It's cause and effect.
Mm.
It's not just spiritual, it's scientific,
Mm.
it's yeah. And we talked before we jumped on about, there's people out there that follow us that, pop up every now and again and go, oh, wow, I need for you to know, you saved my life. And that sounds very melodramatic, but these are the sort of comments that people are saying to us. So,
Mm.
yeah, it's beautiful. So the next question for you, how do you help these gorgeous souls activate their inner wisdom and
Mm.
reclaim their soul's voice? And I noticed that you're doing an oracle card program at the moment as well. I know that you've just launched that. So I know that you do the most beautiful in-person events. I know that you do your one-on-ones. I know that you run the most stunning sacred circles. You do online programs. I know all of this, but I'd like to hear it from you, how you activate. And I know you love that word because you and I both know that, activations are incredibly powerful. So activate their inner wisdom, and so that they can actually reclaim
Mm.
their soul's voice. What
Mm.
comes up for you there?
When you speak that, I think it's in a layer effect of our
Yes.
work as a whole.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I do a multitude of different retreats, circles, everything. I
Yes.
feel like it's
Yeah.
a deepening. I do believe we are multi-layered like an onion, and we are continually being activated to go more within, more learn more about ourselves, our past lives, our ancient wisdom, a reclaiming, embodying, a remembering. I do think that is very much right now happening on the planet at such a deep level. Um, for someone that's just on the coming to spirituality
They're on the
and
fringe.
just on the
Yeah.
fringe for
They're
the
dipping their toe.
just, not sure.
Yeah.
I would say to them, find yourself a spiritual teacher. Start to become still in your energy field. Start to bring stillness into your life. And it really soften and in tune more into your heart.
Wow. Yeah.
You can do that through meditation, mindfulness, going for walks in nature, oracle cards if you're unsure about what the message is that you're receiving and you need to deepen into it. I think there's a multiple of different modalities that we can use to really strengthen and hear our soul's voice coming through at a more sovereign layer, because I do think what is stopping us from connecting is all the outer noise.
Oh yeah, the clutter, the
Busyness.
noise, the programming and conditioning that, keeps us small, keeps us separate, keeps us in that fear, that collective fear. Yeah.
And and something that has been a massive nudge for me this year, where spirit has like very much shaken my cage, working with our children. Our children are new earth leaders. Everything is going to crumble down.
And you actually do that too.
Yeah.
So what I love about you is you walk your talk.
Yeah.
So you said to me, Suze, I want to go and work with kids, and you're working with kids, right?
Yeah.
I just really applaud you for having that faith in action and not just having these insights and ideas, but sacred leadership to me is actually stepping into that and actually walking the talk and being of service to spirit. So I love that. Yeah. So they really are, aren't they?
Yeah. And I mean, I go every Friday morning to my local school, Picton Primary. I think that we need to give our children permission to be whoever, we need to get curious. We need to allow them the space to be their magnificent self and learn more about their intuitive self. And so I do sound bowl healings, allow that, meditation. Today we made sensory bottles. I think it's really, really important because they're the next generation coming through. And if we allow them the space to learn how their body is a temple and giving them feedback every day like we are as adults, it gives them more resources in their toolkit.
Creating space. Yeah.
The world is only going to get louder around them. So it gives them other things in their toolkit that they can pull out and go, actually, I know that music calms me, or I know that this being in nature helps me, ground. I think it's so important because I know that my role as, speaking not as a priestess, as a mother.
Yes.
If I can teach my son intuition, that's the best.
Absolutely. And to me, it's a spiritual discernment.
Yeah.
If you can teach them to be self-governing, sovereign, not a sheep, leaders of light, create the space so that they can be authentic, teach them strategies to stay still and calm.
Yeah.
And really, you're right, because it's only going to get noisier. So, yeah.
And I just see so many of our children and youth and even adults, so many people right now are suffering, are deep in suffering in their nervous systems and their mental health. And I just think that, so many people are afraid to be still or unwind that. I need to work 50 hours a week. I was one of those people.
I was too. I'm a recovering workaholic. I used to work 100-hour weeks. I was on that, corporate treadmill, building the investment portfolio and then wondering why I felt so empty inside, And of course it was fun and I value that period of my life because it did teach me so many things. But in saying that, Absolutely. Oh, I love that so much. So my next question for
No,
you,
I'll keep
gorgeous
talking.
priestess. um, I'm really curious. Can you explain the concept of sacred heart healing and its benefits? Because I know this is something that you often talk and write about.
Mm.
So I have jumped a question. I'm going to go back to another question, but this kind of really popped out of the page for me. So I love the name of it, Sacred Heart Healing, and its benefits. So yeah.
Mm. I love that question because I've actually never been able to explain it.
I know, because it's so abstract, right? So everything intuitive is often quite random and quite abstract. So to put it into words when it's energetic can be actually quite challenging. But it's kind of fun to try and explain it, to kind of teach it almost, you know? Yeah.
I believe our heart is the gateway to the soul. I believe it's the connection to our soul gateway. And I believe so many people are scared to connect to their heart.
Yes. Scared
I
to feel, scared to go within, scared
Yeah.
to fall from the head to the heart. Yeah.
Yes. And I think, and I know that for myself, when I sit in sacred space with a client, I am an open vessel and I connect to their heart. What it is that is holding them back in this physical lifetime, that to move forward into their light at a higher frequency, their soul's journey, their letting go, their healing, their you know, give them permission to do their work or whatever it is that's coming through in that moment while I'm channeling for them. And some of that is intertwined with counseling, some of it's intertwined with mediumship, where I'm talking to their guides and it's a layer, I layer my magic almost. And what I want to say, I know when I've really connected to their heart, because initially people go, no, I don't know what you're talking about. No, 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 because they feel vulnerable, because sometimes they're being seen for the first time in their truth.
Yes.
And then, but I just know. And I
Especially
just,
if they're stuck in story, right? So if
yeah,
they're stuck in story and they have a limiting belief, or they're on a bit of a loop and they're
yes,
in their head and they're
yes.
doing that repetitive thought, let's get you out of your head into
Mm,
your heart. What does it feel like for you?
mm,
What's the feeling that underpins that? And
mm,
that's where the true alchemy is, I believe. But I
yeah.
love that you said it's also the portal as well. It's so amazing. I love that. Yeah, yeah.
I just feel in that moment when I've connected to, their soul's gateway and their heart and their human body, their heart and their human body and their human experience, there is so much magic that happens, and there is so much healing, and there is so much wisdom that quite often people leave and then email me and they're like, I've just listened to my recording for like the second time and I didn't hear you say this, or that was so powerful, or, and I never remember what I say to people, and I don't remember people.
Oh, I know. I often forget too. I have people 2 years later going, remember you told me the la la la? And I go, sorry, no, not really.
Mm. And that's the
I must
same
have
with
been
me.
channeling at the time. I don't really remember that. I
Yeah.
remember you and I remember, but I don't remember that particular thing, Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And I just, there's just a magical exchange, and whatever has come through, they might not be willing to see it right then in that moment, but
Yeah.
maybe in 2 months' time, they go, oh, actually, I see now in all of its truth. I feel it, I see it, it's happening, it's healing or whatever it is.
Yes. Often if they react to it and it's triggered them somehow, um, and it might be unpleasant at the time, but that truth
Mm-hmm.
often reveals itself later.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they value the truth then. They don't always value it at the time when you're
Mm-hmm.
in session, but, 6 months down the track or even 2 weeks down the track, they're like, oh, Suzy or, Priestess Lilly was right about that. Like, yeah, exactly.
Sometimes we don't want to hear the truth.
No, I don't think the truth.
I mean,
I'm in denial.
Yeah, even when I meditate and I get told something and I go, oh, can we just skip that? When my clients tell me something,
I'm not ready for that.
Yeah, can we just skip that? Can we just put that on pause? And then it just keeps coming round and round and round.
That's it. Okay,
I've got to
it's repetitive until you sort it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful. So that's really interesting. And the next question was about, helping them clear their energetic blocks, or how can we, but we've already kind of covered that, which is interesting. So you must be psychic, my love. Right? So I know that you're a medium, and not all psychics are mediums. We're both mediums. It's something that is a sacred calling for us. It's something that we've done since we were children. And I know that you and I have a very similar take on the reason for mediumship in regards to the healing practice. So how do you integrate mediumship into your healing practices? And I'm really curious to know your kind of, just your kind of take on how powerful it can be.
Oh, I've got goosebumps when you ask me this question. Normally, when I sit with a client, people come in with, souls come in with that client. And in that moment, when I'm sitting with them, I can normally tell if they're here to connect to a soul that's passed over. I can normally tell straight away. I feel the grief in their heart and the heaviness. And normally the loved one is just standing there, banging in my head, talking to me, wanting to talk.
Yeah.
And it just, if I ignore them, it just keeps happening. So I just have to acknowledge them. And then normally that just opens up the door and the floodgates are open and we're away. I know. I think it's an absolute privilege to be a medium.
Yes.
I think it is.
I see it the same way. It's an honor.
I think it's such an honor to be able to give the healing that souls that people need when their loved ones have passed under whatever circumstances they've passed. I think that's a privilege to be that bridge of
that beautiful conduit, that channel.
Absolutely.
That,
And I've seen people and people to understand the cycle of birth and death, and it really is a magical cycle. As much as we have so much fear around dying, it is so magical because there can be so many synchronicities when someone passes, and the butterflies, the birds, how spirit communicates with loved
music, not even number plates, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I just know all the people that have come. I know all the people that have come to me to connection for a loved one in spirit. They leave. They normally email me afterwards, or they leave feeling so much more at ease.
Yes.
So much more at ease within their soul, within their deeper understanding on why that person had to leave during that time, or how they left, or it can be closure if they never got to say goodbye.
Yes.
I just think there's so much.
There is.
Magic.
Often they want the link, the evidence, the validation. Yeah. But at the end of the day, what I've noticed over the years is what they remember is the healing message, is that heart to heart, soul to soul connection in regards to, I'm sorry, or, I couldn't say I love you, I'm saying it now. Whatever it might be, even just, I think, that's the main reason, right? Is that
see something from a higher, soul sees something from a higher, a higher bird's view. They see something differently and they go, actually, I'm sorry, I could have done that better. Or, they didn't have, and I do believe some people consciously do not have the awareness in this lifetime
Yes,
what their loved ones need around them. But when they get to spirit, there is this, they see it and then they want to bring that message through. And that's where I think there's just so much healing. Or
exactly.
they
It's
find,
almost like they have a life review without judgment.
yes.
So it's almost like they get to review their own life for their own spiritual growth and ascension without the judgment. So it's not like they're punishing themselves or any of that. It's more in regards to, oh, okay, yeah, I'm totally with you. I find they're often in their higher self perspective, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like you can have a conversation with a human spirit that perhaps you couldn't have if they were still here, because they're seeing things from, a higher, as you said, a higher perspective. Absolutely.
And I just know that, our ego,
Yeah.
our ego is sometimes the thing that stops us from apologizing to people or forgiving people. And I just look at just, within people that have come to me and connected to family, or a mum, that they hadn't spoken to for 10 years, or, whatever
Yes.
it was. It just heals so much. And then what happens, the ripple effect is that whoever received those messages, they're healed and they choose to live consciously different, or they choose that healing in their ancestral lineage then
Yes.
because it it means that they don't have to carry that wound anymore, so it doesn't get passed on to the next generation.
Exactly.
And I
Healing up and down the family tree. Yeah.
yeah, and I just think that's where I just go, there's so much privilege and there is so much magic. And
Yes.
that is how we can change also the consciousness in families and on the planet through healing.
I have to ask you a question. It's just come to me now. Often when I do mediumship, I find that they have in mind who they want to talk to.
Oh, yeah.
And it's probably their favorite auntie or
Mhm.
their beautiful soft nana or their mum or their best mate or their friend or, you know, um, you know, or whoever it may be. But often the person that steps forward is the person that does need to clear the air, um, bring healing. And it's like, oh no, I don't want to be talking to him. So
Mhm.
I'm wondering, I'm just curious now as to how you kind of like cope with that, because I know it can be a little bit challenging when it's like, no, let's talk to mum. I don't want to be talking to dad. Like, yeah,
I
or
love
the
that.
other way around.
I
Let's
always,
not talk gender, or the other
yeah,
way around.
I
Yeah.
always believe people come for a reading and they have, oh, I want to talk to my nana, or I want to talk to such and such. And I always believe, depending on what's happened in the relationships, or what's happening actually on the earth plane with the person,
Yes. Yeah.
the right person will step through where
Absolutely.
they go, I don't want to talk, I want to talk to Nana, because Nana's the soft energy and keeps them,
Yes.
in that mothering vibration, where
The nurturing, yeah.
they actually might need the granddad or someone else to come through and whoop their ass. Do you know what I mean?
That's it.
So I love that.
Exactly. Or a spiritual teacher going, you know what you need to do. You need to get back on track with your spiritual practice, or yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, times out of 10, those spirits do come through, but I often find that the spirit that really has an important message is usually the one they don't want to talk to. It's quite fascinating.
And when they do come through and they go, I don't want to talk to dad, or I don't want to talk to whoever it is, I always say to them, well, I'm sorry, you have to talk to them if you really want to get to the person you came here for, because this person's not
This
going
is
to.
the way, yeah, the gatekeeper,
This
the
is
way shower,
yeah, this is
spokesperson. They're
and
not going to move aside until
yeah,
we have a chat to them.
and
Exactly.
yeah, and normally that's normally what happens. You
Yeah.
give the message, and then normally they've said what they needed to say, and then they step aside, and then someone else might come through, and then it might be a blend of both of them talking. But I'm the same as you. I think there's so much I find those readings actually really, really cool.
I find them cool too. I love it too.
Mm.
And yeah, I know mediumship is such a gift. I absolutely love it.
Mm.
And but it's not an exact science. It's not like, it's necessarily going to come through the way it needs to. And I do realize too that it can create a trauma response for some people. And if I get an inkling of that and they're not ready to unpack that trauma, then of course, there needs to be sensitive delivery. I totally get that. But in saying that too, as a medium, it's worth educating the wider world that, it's not like, we have direct control over who's going to come forward.
I'll tell you a story and you'll laugh at this. A dear friend of mine who's now passed, and in past life, she was a really close priestess sister. And all her life, she meditated. All her life, she did witchy practices, meditated, everything that was a little bit like out the gate to some people. Her husband just said you can't meditate in the house.
Right.
No, you can't meditate in the house. You can't do that. You can't, don't want that stuff here,
Deary
Anyway,
me, yeah.
she's now passed.
Yes.
And the agreement was with her, that he had to come to me for a reading. You promise me that you go to Lily for a reading. And he goes, oh, I'm not going to that poo-hoo stuff. And anyway, he said, okay, I promise you. And, she passed away peacefully. About 6 months ago, he came to me for a reading. And he is now my biggest advocate, my biggest promoter.
How wonderful.
Because
I love that.
there is no way in hell Lily knew what his wife was telling him. There's no way in hell that she knew some of the deep secrets that his wife was telling him. And he says to me, you've converted me. There's something there. You've converted me. There's something there. This is a man that's in his 70s.
He's probably skeptical.
Yeah.
And to be honest too, I think skepticism, asking questions, being discerning is actually really good, because when they do realize it's real, it's so much more powerful. But in saying that too, I think it's okay to have that little bit of doubt and a little bit of, you and I don't, obviously, because, we have that direct line. But I think that's okay to be a little bit skeptical too. But what a fabulous story. I love that so much. And now he's your biggest advocate, right?
Oh, he tells everyone now. And the funny thing was, he'd just gone and bought this brand new black Porsche. And he hadn't told anyone. He'd driven it and put it in the garage. And I was going to their house like at 11 o'clock, that day.
Yeah.
And the wife said, what the hell have you spent that money on, that bloody black Porsche? And he goes, like, he just freaked out, because he was like, I hadn't told anyone I'd gone and spent money on buying this Porsche. After I finished the reading, he goes, I want to come and show you. Come with me, Lily. I want to show you something. And in the garage is this black Porsche.
Wow. Amazing.
Yeah.
That's so good. What great evidence.
Yeah.
That's so good. So I'm going to ask you about something different now. I know that you have your own podcast. I've been a guest on that podcast. I've been listening to that podcast. But and have you got a radio show, or is that what you're calling your podcast, the radio show?
I used to be on a radio show in Christchurch, but now I've moved, so I can't use the studio. But I used to be on Plains FM.
I love your podcast because it goes deep. It's so authentic. It's so inspiring. So what do you hope listeners take away from your podcast? Your Priestess Lilly? Is that what it's called? Priestess Lilly podcast?
Yeah, Out of the Noise.
Out of the Noise.
Yeah.
What a great name. Out of the Noise.
The name says that, taking conversations out of the noise of mainstream and holding space for sacred dialogue, for sacred conversations. I hope the listeners that listen to that, and, you know, I have a variety of different people that come onto my podcast. It's taking things that aren't necessarily mainstream
Yes.
and opening, you know, the conversations for them. It's very much about, I believe right now consciousness is changing on the planet, and we are being called with
How exciting, I know. It's
and
exciting times. I know there's a lot. I think there's extremes at the moment.
yes.
I think we have that duality
Mm-hmm.
because we're trying to find that equilibrium. It's like the pendulum. It has
Yeah.
to swing, you know, it has to swing like almost out of control.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's activism, isn't it? But, you know, that kind of swinging of the pendulum so that
Mm.
it does find that really beautiful balance. So I'm totally with you. But the good thing is the extreme good is creating the most positive conscious change.
Mm-hmm.
Change is happening. But of course, the dinosaurs are clinging to the old paradigm, to the old belief system, to, you know, we won't go into it too much, but, you know, the wounded patriarchy, you know,
Mm-hmm.
clinging to that, you know, that kind of bully mentality of
Mm-hmm.
white male egomaniacs. Let's just be honest about that part, and we'll park that now. Absolutely. I totally agree with you on that. So you want your listeners to take away from it, the sacredness,
Yeah, and I just feel like consciousness is changing, and, you know, it's about us, you know, out of the noise, is getting out of the noise of mainstream and going inwards. So the conversations are very spiritual, very how do we connect more to our light, talking about, you know, us changing necessarily. I know that for myself, just in the last 4 years, how much my values and beliefs have changed around certain things that,
yes, same
you know,
here.
yeah, my personality, my ego is definitely not taking center lead anymore. It's definitely
No,
soul. And so it's, how do you navigate that change? How do you navigate being authentic? And obviously I bring in inspiring leaders that you know, some challenge my narrative. And that's cool, because
that is
how do
cool.
we
And you don't have
sit?
to agree on
Yeah,
everything, because let's find that middle higher road.
yeah.
I mean, peace literally is that, right? Peace literally is that. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
So I just want people to, when they listen to my podcast, to very much, you know, allow it to be activating or mindfulness or connective for them in whatever way it needs to be. And there's some days I do meditations on it. Some days it's light language. Some days it's interviews with beautiful, beautiful souls like you, Suzy. I very
Oh,
much
thank you, my love. Yeah.
sit in the sacredness and just go, what right now does, you know, the consciousness of the planet, of humanity need? And sure as eggs, the right person shows up for that interview, or that,
Exactly.
or I
Yeah.
get a download from spirit and I'm like, right, today
Yes.
we're going to talk about whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. I think people are craving deeper meaning in their lives. I
Mm-hmm.
think, you know, well-being is that
Mm-hmm.
holistic approach. It's not just physical, emotional, mental. It's also spiritual. And half the time they don't even really know that. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes they're drawn to it, they stumble on it and they go, oh, right, I get it. You
Yeah.
know, yeah, I
I
love that
think
so much. Yeah.
I think what you just shared is so important. I think for so long we have looked outside of ourselves for our purpose. You know, our
Yes.
purpose has been us as, you know, the school teacher, the, you know,
Yeah.
we've looked
The
externally.
masks, the roles,
Yeah,
the obligations,
I
the
do believe right
job
now,
title. Yeah.
I do believe right now we are our purpose. It's us. We're meant to be looking, you
Oh,
know,
that's profound.
it's us that's the purpose. In order to change the ripple effect on the planet and live in the world that we consciously want to live on, we need to become the vessels of allowing ourselves the space to grow and harmonize in becoming the purpose of ourselves rather than external.
That beautiful softly walking on the earth, you know, like
Mm-hmm.
that embodiment
Mm-hmm.
practice of personifying those qualities. So even if you're not, you know, a spiritual teacher or psychic medium, way shower, space
Mm-hmm.
holder, I think you can still show up in all arenas, and we need, you know, light leaders in all arenas to yeah, you know, how you show up is, you know, your energy is contagious. Your essence creates a ripple just by you doing you and being you. You
Mm-hmm.
don't have to even do, you know, it's not like you have to run a meditation circle, or of
No.
course you can do that. Of course you can do that if that's what you feel guided to do. But I think, you know, in the corporate space, in the sales space, in the government, whatever, we need leaders of light everywhere, right? Yeah.
Oh, totally. We need leaders everywhere to lead from, because that is how we change. That's how we change this. That's how we change. We need to come back to our roots and, community, and have the flow on effect, because it's going to take a wee while for everything to come into alignment. And I really think that's what's happening right now on the planet. We consciously have been living so out of alignment that we're now coming back into balance of, harmony and balance. And the scales have been so tipped for so long that now it's about COVID was that soft opening to a bigger conversation where we all got sent home like we were naughty school kids. But we got connection. We started to connect back to our families, and
it's backfired a bit, isn't it? Because now it's like, okay, now you can come back to your offices and come back to that factory mentality of sitting in rows, and everyone's gone, no, actually, I'll work 2 days a week in the office, but I don't want to work 5. So I think it's actually had a really positive impact in regards to flexibility and work-life balance, and working in around the family and all of that. So I love that.
I think it's given also people permission to really realize and own what they need versus what they think they have to do. Like for me, I was doing 60 hours a week. Now I'm like, that let's just, get rid of
Yes.
that belief. I've got
Yeah.
to and work differently and smarter.
What really matters.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. So what advice do you have for those looking to align with their soul purpose and to live an authentic life? Because I know that you have a very kind of deep understanding of that yourself, which is, so how would they align? How would they live congruently, align with their soul purpose, and live a more genuine kind of soul-led life, do you think?
If you don't know what your soul mission is,
Yes.
because I think there's so many people on the planet that just do not have any idea of what their soul mission is, become still, sit with nature, meditate, and just simply journal or meditate on that question. How am I to be of service?
Get really clear on your why, yeah?
How am I
Align
to
to your core values and your ethics and your higher purpose, and how can I be of service to spirit? Yeah.
Or how would you use me? I think that's the first question.
Yes.
That
Love
I
it.
would ask, I would sit with. To lead a soul-led life, I think it's about starting to live your authentic self as an everyday intention.
Yes. So no more people pleasing, overcompensating, going along with things that you don't agree with because it's easier somehow.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean that you have to become, I don't know, you can do it in your own gentle way if you like. But in saying that, yeah, absolutely. So what's on the cards for Priestess Lilly?
Oh, what's on the cards?
I know you're doing amazing things anyway, to be honest, because I know you sort of like allow things to evolve and unfold, don't you? I've noticed that about you. Yeah.
What's on the cards for Priestess Lilly? I just allow spirit to lead me. I live in Picton, so I've moved here 2 years ago. I think the first year I was just finding my feet and grounding. I'm now ready to start shining my light in the area that I live in. So that's, community is a big focus for me, and those that have followed me in the past know that community is a big focus. So I think it's definitely that in some capacity. Also, there's some amazing projects just sitting out there that are really starting to flourish and gather momentum. And I do think that they're going to be birthed in 2025.
Yes. It's all preparation.
Yeah.
This podcast, I've literally been talking about this podcast for 3 years. Okay. And I kept getting distracted and kept putting it on the back burner and kept talking myself out of it. But you know what? I think it's about integrating it. I think it happens at the right. We talk about divine timing all the time, and that is actually a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's just for me, awakening other souls to connect to their intuitive self. I know that's
because it's just a better way to live, right?
I know
You
that's
feel
my soul
more alive inside. Like, wake me up inside.
Mm.
Like, what makes your heart sing? What makes your soul feel alive? Do you want to get off autopilot living? Do you want to come out of Groundhog Day? Do you want to come out of the Matrix? Do you actually want to live, not just be led?
Yeah.
Right?
And I think that's really important. So many people are living their life, but they're not present in their life.
That's it. Priestess presence.
I think that for me was a massive shift in 2020.
Yes. I think presence is I think living in the moment, we talk about it all the time, but living in the moment, sacred presence, priestess presence, I think that's probably one of the most powerful portals for genuine happiness, not artificial happiness, right? Yeah.
And those that are listening that go, wow, how do I make that happen?
Yeah. Sounds challenging.
I didn't just decide, to change my whole life radically.
Yeah. It doesn't happen overnight, right?
It was about, what is my first baby step? What is my second baby step? What is my third baby step? Because obviously I knew when Spirit showed me that I would be standing on a stage speaking to like 200 people. I was a caterer in the kitchen having a meltdown going, I don't think so. I don't think so. What I said to myself, if that's how I'm to be of service, how are you to use me? What is my first baby step? My first baby step was that first client for a reading. The second baby step was,
great advice.
Yeah. So
great advice.
It was
baby
like,
step.
How do I get closer to her standing on the stage? How do I get closer to her and embody her? So it was small, gentle steps to get there.
Softly, softly. You don't need to see the whole staircase.
Yeah.
You just need to see that first step, and the second step appears. That's such great advice. I love that so much. Thank you for sharing that.
It's okay.
Now, my love, I'm going to ask how people can connect with you, because I know they're going to want to, the same way I like to. But I thought too, before we do that, would you like me to share a card that I pulled for you from my new Moon Temple Oracle deck?
Totally. Oh, yep. I've been looking at this online.
And you're going to love it. And you can't make this up, right? You can't make this up.
You can't make this shit up, just saying.
Yeah, that's right. You can't make this shit up, right? So it's the Moon Temple Oracle deck. It's being launched in October. And Lila Savalainen is the artist, and Blue Angel are my publishers. But the card I pulled for the Divine Priestess Lilly is the beautiful Celtic Ceridwen. And it's a waxing crescent moon, and it's a number 9, and it's fate. And I don't know if you can see it, but she's got the most beautiful silver hair, and she's looking up at that beautiful silvery kind of spider web, and there's the most gorgeous magical spider, and her you know, that beautiful kind of, you know, the wind is blowing away the cobwebs. So I'd love your insight into what that means for you.
Well, first, I find it interesting that we were just, before we started recording, we were talking about Celtic roots.
Yes, and she's a white witch.
Yeah, and being a white witch. So I find that in itself, that when you look at the card,
She's actually Welsh, and she's a multi-dimensional. So she often comes through as the wise woman, crone meaning crown of wisdom. But yeah.
I think she's embracing her magic. I think she's opening her heart, embracing her magic, and she's surrendering, and it's allowing the universe to drop it in like stardust.
Oh my goodness. Yes, please. So good.
Because when you look at the card, there's like magic in the top of it, and it feels like it's all coming down. It feels like it's light codes coming down and anchoring in.
Absolutely. It does feel like light codes. And those beautiful connections, you know, the web, you know, that beautiful web we weave. And I know you weave the most magnificent magic. So I want to thank you for coming on to Ask the Oracle today. You know, I love and adore everything you do. You know, I highly encourage people to find like-minded, love-hearted soul sisters, soul brothers, so that they feel really connected, because I've learned from you without a doubt, and we learn from each other and we hold space for each other. So I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for taking the time to share your wisdom today. Know that I love and adore you. Yay.
Thank you, Suzy. Right back at you. And I have to say this, Suzy, you know, your Oracle deck was one of the first, when your Oracle decks are just so, I mean, they're sitting right here. The wisdom that you share through your Oracle decks in your community is phenomenal. This is my favorite deck. So I can't wait to get your other deck. You know, it's people like you that actually have that ripple effect to make people like me want to keep showing up in the world.
Oh, thank you.
So, you know, you offer
right back at you, sister.
You offer so much wisdom, and I'm so thankful that you invited me to come on your podcast, because I know that
I'm so glad we met, actually. You know, let's take it to a whole new level. The podcasting's fun, but I'm just really glad we met. Yeah.
Totally, sister.
Totally.
Thank you, Suzy.
Thank you, my love.
See
Bye
ya.
for now. See
Bye.
you.